Hello and welcome everyone to electionspeakers.com, the place for unique critique of the important speakers of the 2012 presidential campaign. My name is Dr. Dennis Becker, and I'll be the host for these special broadcasts, which are designed to give voters valuable information needed to make a confident decision on November 6th. We'll be watching and listening to the candidates and others who are trying to win your vote. The talking techniques and the tactics that they're using are our exclusive topic for this unique critique. And joining me today, as she has for the last 4 years here on electionspeakers.com, is Laurie Schloff, Senior Speech Coach and Director of Executive Education at the Speech Improvement Company. Welcome, Laurie.
Hello, Dennis. Hello, everybody.
Also joining Laurie and I from left to right around your radio dial is Monica Murphy, another Senior Coach from the Speech Improvement Company. Welcome, Monica.
Great to be here, Dennis.
And right next to Monica and Laurie is Robin Maxfield, Senior Coach at Speech Improvement. So welcome, Robin.
Hello, everybody.
Now, tonight is today is August the 28th, and we just finished hearing, I hope you heard it too, and watching the Republican convention, the first night of the Republican convention. Well, we're here tonight to talk about, you may be listening to this to the daytime, we're recording this right after the convention at night. We're here to talk about how those speakers did and what they did and what kind of techniques they used that either made them effective or not so effective. And in addition to that, as we go through these podcasts, particularly when we get to the actual debates, which happen in October, we're going to be actually scoring the speakers. And we'll talk more about the debates because they're very special, and you may be actually part of it. You could join us right here in the studio for that. But Laurie, would you explain to our listeners what it is that we're doing in terms of scoring here?
Sure. Well, as coaches, we listen carefully and very analytically to the speakers at a convention. So, for example, we have a scorecard with, believe it or not, 10 different dimensions, and we don't have time to go into all of those dimensions. But for example, attention to the teleprompter and gestures. Are the gestures natural? Are they effective? Are they influential? So that's just 3 of the 10. And Dennis, what we did is each of our coaches scored Chris Christie and Ann Romney and came up with a collective score.
And if each one of the 10, a speaker got a score of 10, they could conceivably score 100 on that's the highest score you could get, right?
That would be hard to achieve. That would be a perfect score.
All right, well, let's talk about who did what tonight. So let's talk first of all about Ann Romney, who was the first speaker she was the first speaker in the convention, but she was the first speaker that came in prime time, and of course she had a very special role tonight as the wife of the candidate. So let's talk about it. How did she do? Monica, what did you think about Ann Romney? How did she do tonight? What kind of things did you see that you thought worked or didn't work for her as a speaker?
Well, Dennis, I thought overall she did a very good job. You know, she had a really tough job. She really had to take a look at what appeals to the average American woman and then try to include that in her speech when perhaps that's not where she from once hailed. And so I thought she did a very good job with a couple of particular things to create that. First of all, I thought she did a very good job with her eye contact. Now, when I say eye contact, I'm really referring to how well I thought she was using the teleprompters. She made sure to deliver a lot of her main messages facing the screen, facing the camera, which really, I think, reached at-home listeners. And I thought that the eye or face contact was one of the things that she did a very, very good job with.
So, understanding, of course, that she was reading the speech. You know,
yes.
She had teleprompters left, right, and center. Mm-hmm. You liked the way she used the teleprompters, and because when she was looking center, she was theoretically looking at those of us in the listening audience, right? And you thought she did a good job with that?
I did. I thought she did a pretty good job with that. What did you think, Laurie?
Yeah. Well, I'd like to know your score. What was it?
Well, my overall score for Ann, or do you mean my eye contact score for her?
No, her overall.
Of the 10 dimensions, my overall score for her was a 61.
All right.
And I know we'll talk about where some of the lower numbers came from, but she really earned high marks for me in terms of her nonverbal facial expression. Not so much the expressions that she made, but her face contact, the way she was using expression, the way she was, prompting to make some particular points. I thought that was one of the things she did Did fairly well.
Laurie, give me a brief rundown.
I rated Anne lower. I rated her as an overall as a 51. And I was trying to think. I knew in advance that she was supposed to humanize the whole situation and especially make Mitt a lovable figure.
Did she do it?
And that's where she disappointed me. So, Dennis, I know one thing that's very important to all of us here, and particularly to you since you're writing a book about it, is the concept of style. Right. So I guess that I was surprised that she came across to me as more strong versus soft and more nervous or hyper versus low key.
Robin Maxfield, what do you think?
Well, I gave her a 65%. I did rate her higher on facial expression and gestures. I feel like she started so strongly with the word love, which is a very emotional word, and failed to really use, she could have used story to connect with the audience and really paint the picture that I think they were trying to paint of Mitt.
Yeah, I totally agree with Robin. Why didn't we hear a story about what makes a real marriage? I was pretty interested. That was her most authentic comment. How did he help when she was ill? What was it like to be a father of 5 kids? How did he interact with them? Because I've heard her talk in other contexts about how comfortable he was, like he was a 6th child.
Yeah, I thought I'd heard her better in other settings, actually. And she was obviously nervous. Listen, there's, 15,000 people in the room, and she was nervous. I could see that. Her pace of speaking was too fast. In other words, the thoughts that she gave out came one after the other, after the other, after the other. And the listeners really never had an opportunity to stop and appreciate it or get involved with it. So I didn't like the pace of speed at which she was talking. Monica?
I thought her speed, that was the thing, the pace of her speed is what I actually rated her the lowest on, Dennis. I would have liked to hear her taking a little more time to paint a picture instead, being more effective with the pace to paint a picture and giving me a sense that she could connect with the middle class. I would have loved to hear a few more stories in general. How did Mitt take care of her when she didn't feel very well? How about some stories of what it was like in the house growing up? A lot more opportunities, I think, to reach the average voter.
Robin, what do you think about this whole storytelling thing? I mean, you're a storytelling coach, so what do you think? Did she tell the stories or not well enough or not enough?
Well, the thing is, if she had told a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end, and given all of the details and told the story as if it were really happening, she would have connected in a heartfelt way to the audience. One of the powers of storytelling is the story actually carries you. So she wouldn't have been so caught up with being nervous and caught up in her own head if she was telling a real life, true story. And she would have been so much more effective.
You don't think she was making that stuff up, do you?
Well, I tend to wonder, because if she's telling a real story, it wouldn't have been difficult. Right. Think about that.
I would say she had a bad speechwriter. I feel that her speech wasn't well written, totally in terms of what you're saying, Robin. We didn't a picture was not painted of what Mitt was like. She said the word, she referred to it.
I thought she did the best she could with the speech that she had. I agree with you, Laurie, that the speech itself was not really written to display the kinds of things that I think she wanted to display about him. I agree with all of you that the storytelling about what he was like or the intimacies of his fatherhood just didn't come across to me.
Well, she made it a point to say, he still makes me laugh. I mean, she said it more than once. I would have loved to hear one little story.
How?
How does he make me laugh? What's one little story? We have
that alone would have made him human.
But in all fairness, I will say this too. She has to be very careful about what words she chooses, how she tells a story, that it doesn't move other people while offending certain other folks. So I think the scriptwriters have a real challenge. You have to be so specific on the language that you choose. And it's hard to tell a story when you have such constraints.
Well, I'm sorry, Robin, go ahead.
I was just going to say, one of the things that always works with storytelling is when it taps into a universal emotion. Yeah. And it always works, because
I thought she'd go there with love.
Yeah.
So she just threw love out without making us feel anything.
Right.
And again, I cut her a lot of slack too. Because she's been a woman with illness, I could see she looked exhausted afterwards. And it's a real hard thing to do, as we know from our clients.
And
to get up there.
She did have some techniques built into the presentation, which I'm sure the speech writers and coaches built in. There's a technique called rhetorical redundancy, where a speaker repeats a certain word or phrase several times to get the listeners involved. She did it a couple of times, and she asked the question, do we want da-da-da-da-da? And the answer was no. Do we want da-da-da-da? No. Well, she did it 3 times. All right. The purpose of doing that, though, is to get the folks involved and get them committed. She did it twice, once with no, 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 and the other one about this is Mitt, this is Mitt. But then at the end of doing it, it just dropped. And that's not good speech writing. They didn't build on that rhetorical redundancy, I didn't think.
Right. One of the dimensions that we're rating is connection with the audience.
Correct.
And I could see, Dennis, that you felt that there were quite a few missed opportunities.
I think so. All right, look, let's go on because we don't have too much time left. Let's talk about Chris Christie, the keynote speaker in this presentation. Robin, let's start with you. Chris Christie now. Here, what's your impression of this guy? How did he do? Keynoter.
Well, he got a higher score from me. I rated him at 78%. I rated him high on body language. I thought he was very good at gesture, and facial expressions were great. They seemed to be in sync with his message. I rated him lower on speed. At times it was difficult to understand what he was saying.
Articulation, pronunciation.
Yeah.
Monica Murphy, what do you think?
Well, overall, I think he was a very interesting speaker to watch. I find many of his gestures were interesting to watch, and I liked the way he told some of the stories that he did. But I've got to say, I really don't feel like he was connecting with the listeners. And I look at the overall score I gave him, which was higher than Ann's. I gave him a 62. But I do think he had a huge missed opportunity in terms of being the keynote speaker. I mean, the keynote speaker, as we talk about as coaches, is you strike the keynote that everybody in there tunes to. So everybody in there, ideally, he just didn't seem to have that connection with them.
Well, let's see now tomorrow and Thursday whether or not everybody connects with. But I think your point isn't very well taken. What is it? What is the keynote? It took him 17 minutes before he even mentioned Governor Romney.
Right.
What is the point of this keynote?
Yeah. Something
Laurie.
I'd like to observe, and I gave Chris Christie a 70, though I found his constant intensity and anger difficult. I was wondering if it was purposeful. Was it just who his natural personality was? Is he reflecting the anger that's out there in America? Let me quickly say I gave him a positive score on the use of language. He said some interesting things. He did say, I have faith in us. That was his most positive thing. He also said, we need people who are more about doing, less about being. I guess that's a dig at Obama. And something I think I have to think a little bit more through, but he used alliteration, meaning repeating a certain letter over and over. We need to change the polls to the power of our principles. Glad I could get that out late at night.
Dividers and the defenders.
Yeah, right.
So his language was interesting.
How about that technique at the end of the speech where he had everybody stand up, stand up? Good technique or not? What do you think, Robin?
I think it gets him involved for sure.
Monica,
But then
what do you think?
I think it would have been great if it worked. I
Right.
think he had everybody stand up, and then that was the time where he should have used a few questions to get us cheering and yelling. And by the, as we were standing, he could have asked us a question and then kept the momentum going and asked more questions to get us cheering and saying, yes, yes, yes. Instead, we stood there for maybe 37 seconds listening to him. It was kind of awkward standing there. And then in the end, we were just standing for a round of applause. But I think it totally lost its oomph, Dennis.
Yeah, that was the I thought his issue was indicative of the whole thing. So just standing up alone doesn't do it. You've got to get people to do something with the standing up. Didn't happen. All right, Laurie Schloff, what do you think? Closing thoughts about Chris Christie?
Well, overall, I guess I was surprised at the tone that was set by both Ann and Chris Christie, in the sense that there was much more sort of intensity. They seemed to be more on edge than I might have thought. And again, maybe we have to take into account the terrible weather situation and people's travel plans and all that. But I guess I was surprised, or maybe I'm tired, that there wasn't more upbeat, positive, and visionary.
They were. Did these speakers do a good job overall tonight for the convention? Robin Maxfield.
Overall, I think it was mediocre at best, and I think there were, as we've illuminated here many, many missed opportunities to really connect, and they needed to do that.
Monica Murphy?
I think Ann did a very good job with the things she worked with. I think Chris did a mediocre job in terms of being in sync with the listeners tonight.
How about Laurie Schloff?
If the goal was to move the 6% who are undecided, I don't think it could have happened.
All right, so there you have it. We're sort of in agreement, and I agree with all the three of you that there were too many missed opportunities tonight, partly due to speech writing, partly due to delivery. And by the way, did you notice the background of the speakers in the back? There's a sort of blue, sort of making going around in a circle. It sort of made me
Notice
dizzy. I
it.
don't know what the heck.
Notice it. I had to take 2 migraine pills.
we criticize everything here. All right. Well, that's it. That's all we have time for on this edition of AlexaSpeakers.com. And we'll be back with more of the most unique critique and the most important speakers in this 2012 presidential campaign tomorrow night. So be with us then. Until then, this is Dr. Dennis Becker for our coaches Robin Maxfield, Monica Murphy, and Laurie Schloff saying thanks for listening and bye for now.